It's very good to see such a large crowd here for what has become a annual event in Toronto, the launch of the annual Socialist Register. This year, for the first year in a number of years, my co-editor, Colin Lees, is here from London. We just had a very successful launch in London last Saturday. It's very good, as I said, to see so many people here. This year's volume, in case you haven't picked up your copy yet, is entitled Global Flashpoints, Reactions to Imperialism and Neoliberalism, or is it Neoliberalism and Imperialism? I forget which order those came in. It was a difficult volume to put together. It's a very large volume, one of the largest volumes in a number of years of the Register. I want to thank Alan Zugi, who's here tonight, who is the Register's editorial assistant, who always does a tremendous job. I also want to thank Frederick Peters, who has put together these events annually with great aplomb, and tonight with this magnificent overhead as well. There was nothing as fancy in London yesterday. And generally, I want to thank the editorial collective, who gave us great input and great support. Obviously, putting together this kind of a volume, and you'll notice, I hope, that the authors are primarily from the regions that the essays are on. And putting this together was, in that sense, a challenge. Ejaz Ahmad played a very, very helpful role in helping us identify the themes and the authors for the first portion of the volume, which is on Islamic politics. And you'll notice that the articles, the 7 or 8 articles on Latin America, are primarily written by people in Latin America. And that, too, involved a lot of support work from our collective, above all of Thierry Baron, in identifying people and in themes, and also in the translations. In conceiving this volume, Colin and I were very conscious of the fact that when the Register began back in 1964, it had as its subtitle, and it had that subtitle for a number of years, a survey of movements and ideas. And the political topography that referred to at the time was fairly clear. It was the parties of the working class movement, the communist and social democratic and socialist parties of that movement. It was the national liberation movements, which had either already been successful or were in the process of being successful in the 1960s. It was the new social movements that were arising, the student movement, the women's movement, the civil rights movement, very much in flower at that time. Today, some 40 years on, some 40 decades on, it's much more difficult to identify the political topography of what that refers to when you're speaking a survey of left movements and even left ideas. And what we attempted to do with this volume was look at the reactions to neoliberalism and imperialism that have erupted in this decade, and to focus on the major regions in particular where that was taking place, and those two regions above all, although we didn't limit the volume to that, were the Middle East and Latin America. And what we wanted to do with the essays in this volume was to take a very sober look at what they amounted to in terms of the possibilities of not only screwing up neoliberalism and imperialism, not only resisting it, but offering some prospect for progressive and even transformative change. And in that sense, you'll find as you read the volume that the essays are very sober in this respect. Not only sober with regard to what political Islam stands for in that sense and amounts to in that sense, but also very sober in terms of what's taking place in Latin America. How generalized the struggle is there or not, and the extent to which it promises new political movements of a transformative kind. In addition to that, the volume also has 3 essays, apart from those 2 regions, which are very interesting and very important, on France, on the range of resistances there, which in a sense have come to an end with the Sarkozy moment, although one sees a renewal of struggle, especially from the labor movement at the moment. An essay called Counter-Revolution in the Counter-Revolution on Eastern Europe. The reaction from the right to neoliberalism that above all has emerged there most graphically in Hungary. And an essay on the imperial heartland itself, on the eruption of the Latino migrant workers' protests, above all the enormous May Day demonstration on 2006. The volume ends with a symposium on neoliberalism, an analytic symposium on neoliberalism, organized to some extent around the theme of what is the difference between a Marxian and a Keynesian critique of neoliberalism, but also analyzing, and above all Greg Albo does this, the relationship between what Albo calls neoliberalism and the dispossessed. So that's the framework of the volume. Tonight we have organized the evening around 2 panels. One that focuses on imperialism, political Islam, and especially in that respect on Iraq. And for that we have Ejaz Ahmad and Saba Al-Naseri here. And the second panel was to be a panel of 3 of our authors. Raghu Krishnan, who is here, Greg Albo, who is somewhere in transit because of delays in Air Canada flights from Vienna to Toronto, and Dick Roman, one of the co-authors of the essay on Mexico, the Oaxaca Commune, who is ill with a flu and has lost his voice. So Raghu will be carrying the load on that panel. Just to very briefly introduce Saba and Ejaz, and then Colin will introduce Raghu and that panel. Torontonians are very fortunate that this is the base of, and I'm sure many of you know this, an important media initiative of the left, Independent World Television, which the former producer of Counterspin and Face Off, Paul Jay, is putting together. And it's meant to be a global, initially English language, but global television and video network that's also available on the internet, which has already been launched via the website of The Real News, which is offering trenchant, progressive and alternative analysis to what one normally gets in the media, above all in the television media. Ejaz has joined that project as the senior news analyst, and in addition to spending some months here, which he's done since September now, and will be here till early December, he will be very active in this project in launching it in India. Ejaz, I imagine, is well known to people who are attending tonight. He has had a number of very important essays in the Register in the last decade, in addition to his lead essay in this year's volume. He is one of the senior editors of the Indian magazine Frontline, which I expect many of you read on the internet. And Saba Al-Naseri has just joined us at York University. Saba is an Iraqi who I guess was one of the exiles of Saddam Hussein. spent some 2 decades in Europe and especially in Germany, and has written a great deal and is well known on the German left. In a sense, this piece in the Register is Saba's coming out party to the English-speaking world, and it's a remarkable, really truly remarkable analysis that he has written, a very, very unique and important one. So without further ado, we'll organize tonight with this discussion first with Ajaz and Saba. We'll hopefully have a little time for discussion. Ajaz has to leave after this panel. We'll then take a brief break, and those of you who haven't bought copies of the Register can go do so. And then we'll come back for the second panel. Afterwards, I hope you'll all join us at the GSU pub next door, where we normally have a little bit of a party afterwards. So, Ajaz, please.